Welcome back to Modular March. Today we have a special guest, Ajit from wow, I'm gonna blow that. How do you say the name again?
Ajit.
Ajit.
Hadron.
Ajit.
Yeah,
Hedron.
Hadron. Yeah, some people mispronounce it as Hardon, but it's not. It's Hadron. Hadron is the founders community, in the Polygon ecosystem. So we're building it around the world for builders who want to build with Polygon and the EigenLayer, the CDK, and lots of cool things. So we have it's a global community of founders. We have two physical locations, New York and Dubai, and we run programs and events for founders around the world. Especially a lot of founders come from either creator backgrounds like artists and musicians and so on, or they come from core engineering backgrounds, right? Like or they come from scammer backgrounds, but we're not interested in those. So with the engineers and creators, it's more. So we are interested in kind of helping them connect with other founders. Founders learn a lot from each other. So it's a very lonely job to be a founder. So just connect with each other, learn from each other, but then also have access to all of the resources of the Polygon ecosystem, such as venture funds. Everyone needs money, especially founders. Then people who have been through the journey, people like Sandeep, Zaki, Sriram, a lot of OGs who kind of gone through this journey multiple times. Rushi, Famu, all they don't have to be like huge, but they have to have some experience that's relevant to founders. So we're working on creating a community around the world for founders to feel as productive as possible when they are part of our programs, and kind of build the community for the EigenLayer that way.
Ajit, what is your background?
Yeah, so I come from TradFi, and I'm not ashamed of it anymore. So actually, I had a lot of fun at Goldman. It was actually pretty cool. And then I went to work with PwC, where I was thrown into blockchain because no one else wanted to do it. And there was no money in it, so they said, "Hey, why don't you do it?" So okay. And then I went to Consensus because I told Joe Lubin that whatever he was doing with coins was a bad idea and he should focus on enterprise. And I've never been more wrong in my life, at least financially speaking. And then I went to work with Avail. Stanley hired me to talk to all of TradFi, and and then the last 2 years I've been with Polygon as an advisor and supporter, mostly like an intern in the founder's office.
Chief shitposter. And you've been one of the louder modular bulls, at least in my tweets.
Yeah. So see, I can be confusing for people because there are a lot of people are religious, right? So they essentially take a position that Ethereum is God's own coin, and you have to take this conviction position on technology. And say, look, oh yeah, I believe in Celestia, right? Or I believe in Avail, or I believe in Ethereum, or I believe in Solana. And if you're a scientist or an engineer, right, you don't spend that much time believing. Sure, you have conviction and a vision and where you want the future to go, but you don't become as tribal or as religious as suddenly, right? Now, crypto is fundamentally internet culture, right? So we are internet tribes. Tribes have identity. Tribes have money. So blockchains have this major social media aspect. So some tribalism is obviously inevitable. But I don't take a very strong position that Ethereum is the only way to build blockchains, or Solana is the only way to build blockchains, or whatever Mustafa and or Nick are saying is the only way to build blockchains. I think there are some elements of modularity which are inevitable, right? So, for example, consensus computers, which blockchains are, these are stateful, distributed databases that have shared state inevitably, and that limits, how we can scale them. So, as Sriram, I'm a big fan of, EigenLayer, Sriram sir, and I think he's one of the deepest thinkers in this space. As Tarun says, finally we have a founder who is actually smart. I don't think Tarun is trying to offend people, but there is smart, and then there is like another level of smart. So I think Sriram's research and some of his thought process is quite incredible. Mustafa, Vitalik, these guys are in that league, right? So, what Sriram says is that, look, if you're going to linearly cloud scale linearly, right? So you add one more node in a stateless computer, distributed computer like a cloud, then you have more horizontal scalability, right? As long as you adjust for bandwidth and sort of data throughput considerations. Now with blockchains, you don't have that because, as you add more nodes, the whole thing becomes slower, right? So modularity is important because no distributed consensus database can essentially meet the whole world's needs, whether it's Solana or Ethereum. So that thesis I believe in, right? I think even Solana guys are now starting to talk about layer twos and this and that and so on. So that is absolutely correct. Now then there is this other extremist side of modularity, right? Which is, oh yeah, let's create one more component and launch a token. So, which is retarded, right? There is no better way to put it. That, oh yeah, I got one more shared sequencer here, token, bro, let's go, right? I think that's, I'm sorry, that's fucking retarded. So modularity should have a purpose, right? As in, sure, okay, now Ethereum doesn't meet our needs, so we're going to do layer twos. That makes sense, right? Okay, now we have another problem. So, we need data availability because Ethereum has limited data availability. That makes sense, right? Now Solana is crawling because everyone is trading monkey on it or meme coin on it. So I don't believe in engineering without a purpose, and I think modularity has gone to a point where Nick and Mustafa said, "Yeah, build whatever." But bro, you don't build whatever. I mean, think before you build. So I mean, because these are computers for money, right? So and we can talk endlessly about trust assumptions, but the one trust assumption I want is that my fucking money is not going to be rugged, right? So I think being a bit more thoughtful about why we are engineering what we are engineering, like people do in the real world, where we're not arbitrarily funded by pumpy tokens listed on Binance. So in most of the world, people think about why they're building what they're building, right? Crypto is weird because there's a token, so yeah, whatever, right? Build whatever. So I don't think that's the right approach to modularity. People should think about why they're building what they're building, right? And kind of have a real user or something a bit more sensible in mind, as opposed to doing research in Mount Zuzulu and just coming up with shit that no one needs. So I don't think that's the right approach to modularity.
So, Ajit, what does TradFi need? Like, you spent some time at Goldman Sachs, you spent some time talking to TradFi people when you were at Avail. You probably talked to enough people where you figured out like some common threads. Like, what is it that they need, right? And then we'll figure out like how we can build what will accomplish that. But
but we're not trying to meet the needs of So sorry, go ahead.
No. That I think you understand the question.
Yeah, I can understand the question. So I used to do enterprise blockchain, and then I've never done something more useless than that, right? So focusing on enterprise blockchain and trying to sell disruptive brand new technology to existing ways of building companies. That's the biggest waste of time, and I'm sort of, I think this shrooms are better than this, right? I think you can do a lot of stupid shit, but selling new technology to existing ways of building corporations and enterprises and businesses is just the worst thing you can come up with. So, I think this technology is fundamentally different, right? I think Bitcoin obviously had a lot of clarity in their vision as to what they were trying to build, right? So it started with a problem statement, peer-to-peer electronic cash, and then they built it. So I think we should think about consumers and apps, not what Goldman Sachs needs. I really don't care what Goldman Sachs needs, right? What I care about is there a better way to do what we do today, right? So, or is there a better way to do things we don't do today? So Uniswap, for example, right? It's also a problem. I mean, it's more censorship resistant than Binance because, I don't have to send my passport to CZ and then I don't have to kind of get liquidated by CZ or whatever. So I have kind of more transparency and visibility of what's actually going on with my money. So Uniswap solves a problem. Aave solves a problem, right? So we are disintermediating certain things, and that's a real problem because a bank can always close my account. So it has some relevance to someone's life, right? Like these are real life problems. Now we end up creating new problems around MEV and rug pulls and all that. So we solve them, right? So that's engineering. That's the nature of, you build a car, the car crashes. You build a plane, the plane comes down. Some people die, which is sad, but then you fix it, right? That's the nature of engineering. That's how civilization progresses. So I really don't care what banks need. I think that's someone else's job. The question is, what sort of apps can we build either they're existing apps that we can, that have real problems and we can build them in a fundamentally new ways, or we can build entirely new apps that weren't possible before, like, completely disintermediate, sort of relatively disintermediate money like Bitcoin. So I think that's how we should think about it. And, or can we build banks in entirely new ways, right? So bankless, as much as I'm critical and have fun with bankless, their idea is fundamentally sound, right? Which is, can we build financial systems in fundamentally new ways where, we are not at the mercy of, and those are the people we were building this for, right? So like, sex workers and, people at the fringes of the society, political dissidents, immigrants. So I think having that, and we only remember that in bear markets. So every time the number goes down, then we start thinking about Venezuela. When shit pumps, then it's like, yeah, who cares, man? Let's launch a token, right? So I think that's unfortunate, but that's where we are, right? But at the end of the day, I think the question is, we find an application like Lens or Farcaster or or Aave or Uniswap, and then we run into new problems. It's never a finished job, right? So we solve those problems. So we say, look, Ethereum is too expensive. And now we have two different solutions. So we have Solana, which is a lot cheaper, but, and then we have, modular blockchains. So we have Polygon's zkEVM or, Optimism superchain architecture or whatever. And these things kind of start to offer solutions to the problems. And then we run into new problems and we say, okay, let's take the data off and we put it on Validium in a Validium configuration on, on Celestia or Avail or EigenDA, and we take that away. And now we have other problems because now we have we are making a security trade-off. So engineering is all about trade-offs, right? Tokens are all about, I don't know, man. Nothing particularly too intelligent. I'm sorry. Well, they have a biological role. Like money is biological. That creates greed and fear, and there is a tribalism to it. Coins, we identify ourselves by the currency. GBP, identity and money are kind of directly related. So all that stuff is very important on the internet. But if you take that shit away, right, for a second, all the token and tribal, okay, why my number go down and his number go up, all that stuff, then it's all about engineering. And then you have to ask yourself, why modularity, but why, right? And a researcher doesn't have to ask that question, like Mustafa doesn't have to ask that question, because his job is to envision fundamentally new ways. But when Mustafa wrote his paper on data availability sampling, right, the data availability, which started this whole thing, then there was a very specific problem they were trying to solve, right? So Ethereum was looking at scaling. Ethereum was looking at how they need to sort of separate consensus and execution layer. And in that process, a lot of thinking was going on. So Mustafa struck upon something very, very important, which is maybe we can separate all of these things and create fundamentally new ways of building blockchains. Then we can, and it's amazing because as a researcher, that's the way to go. As an engineer, you have to say, okay, what product are people trying to build and what trade-offs do I need to make along this entire stream of possibilities, right? Which Mustafa has now and Vitalik have now created, right? So now we can combine anything with anything, execution layer, data availability layer, just pick and choose, and suddenly you have these RAS frameworks, right? And you say, okay, I do this on the cloud stuff all the time, so maybe I can combine these things like pick and choose and create these RAS frameworks. Okay, now I need a sequencer because what I've done is I've fragmented. So I need a shared sequencer because now liquidity has got fragmented, right? And thankfully Solana exists. So the best thing that happened to Ethereum is Solana. And I'm going to say this out loud because if Solana didn't exist, then people would just do research in an ivory tower and build shit that no one needs, right? So because Solana exists and people are trading dog coins and cat coins, so everyone on the modular research side is also thinking, bro, I mean, how do I make this cheaper, right? So Solana, to their credit, have done modularity a lot of good because they have this phenomenal product culture, right? And they're always thinking of, they have people like Armani who are thinking, okay, now with Backpack, right? How do I minimize the number of clicks? How do I make it easy to bridge on? So those are the types of things that, product people need to think about. And Ethereum has a very strong research culture, right? So Solana, that's where all this modular movement came out of. A lot of the ideas in Solana came out of there. So you need a bit of both. You need product, right? Which is the human touch, as in what are we actually doing? Why are we doing it? Engineering. How the fuck do we do it, right? And then the research side, which is envisioning entirely new ways, right? That's the science part. So you have science, you have engineering, and then you have this, product and commerce, right? So you need all of those. And So unfortunately, tokens completely distort incentives. So people, just want to launch shit that no one will ever use, and probably, run out of cocaine and stuff like that on Twitter. So no comment on that, right?
Yeah, I mean, I saw your
But
tweet
that's
about
just life.
I saw your tweet about how bullish you are on, I guess, this stack of three things happening that we've just kind of dove into, but so bearish on the incentive structures, that are
Terrible.
apparent, right? So it's like what's happening here is so great, like it's
amazing.
it's moving the needle forward, right? Yeah, and then
It's
you just
amazing.
got
It's
like
amazing,
the
right?
kind of shenanigans. So like,
I think
is this
Sorry,
staking
go ahead.
TIA, like staking DIM, pudgy penguins, bad kids, airdrops? Like, is that bad? Is that like what are your thoughts on that?
So look, I'm so I speak to Sriram and often and Sandeep often, and I think I'm like this 20-year-old guy who's physically 48-year-olds. I spend a lot of time on chain, and I'm quite degenerate with a lot of stuff. So I'm not going to be this judgmental uncle kind of guy who says, okay, this is wrong and that is wrong. I don't think that's the idea. In fact, the casino is what funds a lot of cool research, right? If we didn't have this crypto casinos, then zero knowledge technology would not have come this far. A lot of the work that we have seen on distributed computing and cryptography would not have come this far. I mean, because people would expect ROI, right? People would say, where is the revenue? And with this type of disruptive bleeding edge technology, often there is no revenue. In fact, in early days of AI, neural networks, what revenue? What the hell are you talking about, right? All you have is kind of a vague problem statement like self-driving cars, and then you work on it and you work on it, and eventually you come up with something, but it's taken 30, 40 years to get here. So yeah, casino is very important, right? Venture capital is all casino. I mean, you make a long-term bet either on a founder because you think they've got some crazy problem with their mind, and they can't stop till they actually solve it. They have this mental problem, and that's the sort of founder you should look for, which wouldn't stop, can't stop, have this compulsion to actually ship shit that would be very hard for a normal person like Vitalik. And so those are the kind of people who change the world, and you have to bet on them, right? That's a casino. Hamster racing, I mean. And then there are technologies you bet on before they have any, because you almost have to be on shrooms to have that sort of world computer vision, right? I mean, 10 years ahead, but we've come a long way. So casino is very important. Casino is what finance is the core of American scientific and technological progress, and that's why the country does so well, because big people make big YOLO bets, right? And so we need the casino. Let's just stock market is a casino. We need the casino. Now it's the question of incentives, right? How do you tune the incentives? So the problem with crypto is that tokens can succeed. So in the normal world, right, most of the times, except for Weaver, if a business fails or the product fails, the founder also fails. Right? That's how it should be. You make big YOLO bets. You do the California gold rush. You don't find gold. You die wrecked in a ditch. Right? That's how it should be. Not in crypto. In crypto, your product can fail, your business can fail. So we've solved but the token works and the founder gets very rich. And that's retarded, right? So that's clearly a misalignment of incentives, and that's at some point has to change. But at the same time, we have solved the open source funding problem. Now, if you want to raise money for, the 45th ZK EVM or ZKVM with this extra sauce in there, with in-memory compute like Velida or something, it's possible, right? So there's funding available. And we've solved the open source funding problem. What we have unfortunately done is now you don't actually have to ship. You just get a Binance listing or the KuCoin listing or something, and then you tell a big nice story and narrative, and everyone is betting on Ondo and real world assets this week and AI into crypto, BitTensor, and you look at BitTensor and you say, bro, what do you actually do? And the answer is with AI, and it's like we do staking, we do airdrops. Where is the AI in that? So, but wait, in 10 years we'll do that, right? But this thing is already $4 billion. So why the fuck will you even do it if it's already $4 billion, right? So I think that's the problem with crypto, and that's where we see a lot of modular things also go wrong, because I think Celestia, Nick and Mustafa, and now also Shriram and all these guys have done a phenomenal job of kind of communicating the value proposition. So now people are building the 45th shared sequencer, and and there are too many crypto VCs. Mom and dad are also crypto VCs. So if I miss the first one, I'll go into the second one because that category on CoinGecko is hot, right? So I think there is fundamental incentive problem with crypto, and Vitalik has also spoken about it, but it's going to take some time to sort it out.
So if you're launching a new coin for a modular project, who are you airdropping to? How are you building a community via this marketing expense?
Yeah. So this is the thing, right? That's another one of my sad jokes, which makes me less employable. I think it's a stock goes up when people pay you, and token goes up when you pay people. So you do need that, right? And there are multiple levels of community. So my favorite example is EigenLayer, right? So if you look at how EigenLayer community has been built up, it's a gigabyte project. I read the paper and I was like, fucking, this is great, right? And that was like about 18 months ago or something. And so Sriram didn't go out and align all kinds of token community and this and that. So the first community he got was the researchers, right? People who think about the deep stuff, right? So which is, what can I build on this, and what are the implications of doing this, as opposed to the same thing with Mustafa and Celestia, right? So this is like deep thought stuff. And then you go from that researcher, people who are thinking ahead, people who are thinking 10 years ahead and are not really, everyone wants money, but that's not their primary focus, those types of people. Then you go into the circle of, builders and founders, right? Which is people who actually want to take those research ideas and then convert them into an Aave or a Uniswap. And then from then on, you go into, sort of other contributors and supporters like investors, whose primary motivation is obviously money, because that's their job, right? They're investors. But they're also, people who are kind of thinking ahead in terms of where the future will go and why that will result in any profit. And then you sort of go out and out, and then what happens is, once you get those investors, then the next class of money people start getting coming around, which is the crypto influencers and there are all kinds, right? There is like this. There are many classes of different, with no comment on that, right? There are some very iffy ones, and there are some really legit ones also. So then you start building those circles, and then the airdroppers and token holder and all that. Those are all important, right? Because we all are in all of those at the same time. I mean, we want the tokens, we want the money, we want the research. So I tend to span a lot of these worlds, right? So because of having spent so much time in this industry and being on chain a lot. But I think that's the right order of service if you want to build something truly, truly valuable, right? You start from the people who are supposed to think ahead and know better, right? People who are in it for the money, everyone is in for, but not primarily, right? Who are motivated by a bit more than that, and who have this intellectual depth. And then you kind of spin out into builders and investors and crypto. A lot of times what happens is people go the other way around, right? And people do what they're capable of at the end of the day. As in, if you're not a 10x engineer or a product person or a researcher, what are you going to do? You got to make quick money. So so those people are also welcome. It's an open, permissionless, libertarian system. But I think EigenLayer is a case study on exactly how to do this right? I mean, and Celestia too. I think there's a lot. Avail is doing. I'm an investor in Avail, so and they're doing a phenomenal job of some of the stuff in ZK as well. So that's I think that's how community should be built, right? I think Monad is not modular in that sense, but I think they're kind of building it. Solana did a pretty good job, right? I think they went through this journey of building a community. Polygon have done a phenomenal job of bringing a lot of mainstream enterprises and DeFi and this and that. So lots of people are doing lots of cool things, but I think EigenLayer is a pretty good case study on how to build something really valuable inside out, from like GigaBrains onto inclusive points. I mean, EigenLayer points. What's there not to like? Right? I'm always farming points, so yeah, you need all of that.
It makes sense. It makes sense, and it makes sense.
The casino is very important.
Intellectually, yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, but you just can't start there, or else your project is just kind of like
right. Exactly.
You have to start at the intellectual elite, for lack of a better term.
If
kind
you're
of,
building something fundamentally new, yes, right? I mean, if you're building the
yeah,
69th fork of Uniswap, then there is a place for everybody, right? You should do what you want to do. I mean, I
yeah, fair
don't think
enough.
we are in a position to judge, but in terms of how I think about it as an investor, I look for things that are new, differentiated, and will make a dent as much as possible, because then it's fun to spend time on them, right? Because money is one thing, but it's a lot of fun to work with, and that's something we'll try to bring into Hedron as well, right? Which is uh, like Uma is doing with SP1 or Zero we're doing. I mean, the really big ones come from doing something fundamentally new. Even Solana is in that category, right? So
Yep.
Yeah, what do you
Yeah, and then
think about some of the
you're a
like
part of something
latest
bigger than just
like the
money.
latest ZK
yeah,
research from like Succinct and there's a lot of speculation that that's going to take the interoperability and the throughput to like this new level that we haven't seen before because we'll get like state proofs or consensus proofs. We'll get like ZK proofs in practice. Like how do you see the incentives like pushing that forward in a sense that like it'll actually make a difference and be useful in the real world?
yeah. So I think see there is a if you look at what generally the modular folks are trying to do is they're trying to push light clients onto the browser, right? So for example, your wallet, instead of going to Infura, because Infura is a point of centralization, right, or Alchemy, which is a point of centralization, you essentially try to load light clients on your browser, and then you don't need Infura anymore, right? So I think that's a very powerful idea, and that's only possible with data availability sampling, because now light clients can rely on have a very efficient way of making sure that data is available, right? So transaction data is available. So a lot of this stuff needs proofs, right? So you can avoid now. So data availability layers essentially solve the transaction ordering problem, and there are many ways of EigenDA will secure using these that transaction ordering using restate deeds. Celestia and Avail will secure using their own token, and then Avail is doing something similar to what EigenLayer is also doing, because they want to bring in like shared security ideas from both Babylon, so you can essentially stake your Bitcoin and ETH to further secure that your transaction ordering that is in the big blocks, right? So now you say, okay, do I need a settlement layer, right? That's the most disruptive idea in all of this, and that's why Mert keeps talking about why Celestia is a much bigger competitor to Ethereum, and he's right. So Solana is not as big a threat to Ethereum as, let's say, Celestia is, because, or even some of the other data availability layers stacks are going to be, because now you say, look, okay, what are we actually doing with Ethereum, right? We are bridging to Ethereum. We are posting proofs, right? And there is a verification thing running on Ethereum, and that's all we're doing. So at best, maybe if you're not relying on Ethereum state, then what exactly are we doing with Ethereum, right? So I think that becomes a very interesting question. In which case you say, okay, why don't we just essentially run, verifications on the client side? So, so where you essentially send a proof of, data availability or transaction ordering onto the client, and then on the client you have a verifier, right? So, and that says, yeah, okay, man, this shit actually is correct, right? Now everything is sorted. Why do you actually need a settlement layer? So I think Ethereum guys are very aware, and Celestia guys also won't talk out loud about it, because they don't want ETH guys to attack them on Twitter. You know how it works, or Farcaster for that matter. But this is a real thing, So if you look at DIM and some of the other ideas, but I think the long term on this is client side verification, right? So succinct. I mean, now what so this whole setup, right, with ZK rollups, and what I think the long term of Celestia and Avail is that you essentially, if you're going to do a lot of client side verifications and a lot of proof generation, then you need something that generates those proofs very efficiently, and then you need what I think Fede is doing with EigenLayer to, run to verify a very large number of proofs very efficiently. Right? People are building prover marketplaces, because there is this hypothesis that if you end up with lots of modular blockchains, then and lots of proofs, either in the classical ZK rollup type of configuration, or with client-side verifications, we'll end up with lots of proofs and lots of verifications. In which case we need So the problem with today's ZK rollups, whether it's Scroll, ZK Sync, Polygon, ZK EVM, I have to be careful what I say about Polygon because I still am funded by Polygon, but I got to be careful. So not really, I'm joking, but so the thing is, these are hyper optimized for proof generators for the EVM, right? When you hyper optimize something, it becomes hard to maintain and hard to debug, and it ends up you have to be careful about security and so on and so forth, right? So instead of that, you say, look, we'll just write the Reth client, right? And that's a Rust ETH client. We'll just throw it on something that generates ZK proofs for arbitrary computation written in Rust, which is REST0 or SP1. And if it's fast enough, right, then we don't have to write these hyper optimized multiple versions of Polygon ZK EVM, Scroll ZK EVM, ZK Sync ZK EVM, all of which might have their own bugs and maintainability issues and this and that, right? So clean code thrown on a general purpose ZK EVM is a phenomenally brilliant idea, I think. And what UMA has done, REST0 started that category. They did a great job. I'm an investor in REST0, full disclosure. And UMA has done a great job of combining different ideas from that, from Daniel Labaro's work on Valida, right? Like some of the in-memory architecture that Labaro has put together. He's Polygon co-founder. And, some of the other optimizations from Plonky 3, which, Brendan and Daniel have been working on. Again, Polygon guys, right? So Uma combined a lot of different ideas with her best-in-class team to really, build the fastest general purpose, today's fastest ZK VM, like general purpose VM for proving arbitrary Rust computation. Is it fast enough? I don't know, right? So probably not fast enough still, right? I haven't seen the benchmarks lately, but it's faster than REST0 today. REST0 will catch up because they will also combine those open source ideas, and then then there is this race between these two guys, which is phenomenal, very entertaining. And I know which side I'm on this one because an investor for my bags, obviously. So but then Polygon doesn't have that view. It's just my personal view. So that brings us to the next point, right? Which is this shit is still slow. After all these software optimizations, it's still slow. So now we get into a space where, Telos, Ingonyama, all these guys are now doing some very cool stuff with Justin Drake. There was this tweet by Justin Drake, and he posted this, ZK prover ASIC, right? And that's where the world is going to go, because eventually we're going to have the same kind of ZK farming that we do with like with Bitcoin. We do proof of work, and with we'll have like these ASIC farms that generate ZK proof. So at some point when these architectures are mature enough, we'll run like entire racks of ZK farms, and those things will run ASICs or FPGAs or Ingonyama architecture machines to really generate and that's why I think Telos are doing something very interesting. John Litch and Telos are doing this hardware software co-design of their ZK EVM. They're starting with Polygon ZK EVM and then doing something very, very cool with ASICs. So the question is, as engineering, so I used to be an engineer, right? So I wasn't always a retard. So I used to be a proper engineer. So I think you kind of start to take all these things, right? Can we have clean design? Are we solving a real problem? What's the product, right? And then is it cleanly architected? And then you start to bring in all of the beautiful things about software engineering we don't see enough in blockchain, right? Which is maintainability, flexibility, extensibility, and not just performance, because just optimizing software for performance is retarded, because you end up with a lot of shitty code that causes all sorts of problems, right? So I think the future is something like what UMA is doing and REST0 are doing, combined with hardware software co-design. So if you look at continuations in REST0, right, they kind of thought about scaling over GPUs, because GPUs are everywhere now and they're getting cheaper and cheaper, right? So I think all of these things start to come together, and then we end up with I think then the question is, what am I going to do with my ETH bags? So we need to scale Ethereum layer 1, don't we?
Do you think we ever get to a point where we get light clients?
Hopefully we'll have an ETF. Sorry. Yeah.
Oh, Do you think we ever get to a
client
point
side verification, right? So
like ZK verification on the client side to truly achieve Satoshi's vision?
Yeah. It's happening, bro. This shit happens faster than, right? I didn't expect Uma to ship what she shipped this year. It was completely out of the blue. I mean, I was looking at Valida and I was like, when are these guys going to start raising and all that stuff? But I wasn't expecting Uma to combine all these things so quickly. It's remarkable. It's just phenomenal
Yeah.
what she's pulled off. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
speaking
I
of
think it's happening,
Ethereum,
and this shit
man.
happens a lot faster than we think. Sorry.
Speaking of Ethereum, is the EVM cooked? Is like SVM, Move VM, is ZK Wasm, are we supposed to be this bullish on this alt VM narrative, or is DA the big unlock here?
Yeah, so there is, narratives are for tokens, engineering is for people, right? So, or product. So I think we should be bullish on whatever the hell people want to buy, whether it's, BitTensor or, God knows what, man. I mean, what do you call it? Slurf?
Joe Bowden.
So whatever. Boden or Goonsler is my favorite, speaking of which. So we should be bullish on whatever people want to buy, right? I think coin nihilism is a real thing in bull markets, and I think there is some rationality to it. But in terms of engineering, right, I think the problems that are interesting, yes, alt VMs are very interesting because EVM is a 2015 creature, right? And ERC20s have very well-known problems like approve and all that shit, right? And we are still doing bad ways of account abstraction like 4337 instead of 3074. That's a whole episode you should have with someone else who knows more. EVM is like patches, right? I think the whole Ethereum stack is very patchy now because we keep patching it to solve one problem like 4844, then it creates new problems, then you go solve that, and so Ethereum has the problem of any other legacy banking system or whatever where I used to work in banks, right? So what happens is it's like SecDB, right? Phenomenal machine, phenomenal computer, right? SecDB, amazing. Goldman Sachs made so much money on that. But it becomes its own thing, and then you keep fixing it and patching it, and you keep patching it on multiple layers, and it becomes even harder to maintain. And now you have client diversity, so you have to do this thing across multiple clients. So dank sharding takes 5 years to ship or whatever, and in the meantime, the world is not going to wait, right? So I don't want to FUD Ethereum because, I hope, because my financials materially depend on it. But at the end of the day, all existing systems go through this problem, right? So where you end up with so much math built on top of that it's very hard to change, right? So Ethereum has that problem. So in the meantime, these parallel, like competing architectures like, Celestia or peers like Avail, with additional concepts of shared security with like Bitcoin staking and restaking, all these things come along, and that creates some very, very interesting possibilities where now engineers who are not necessarily married to bags can start thinking about what's the best way to build the product and systems they're trying to build, right? So and when Ethereum is the monopoly and everybody thinks Ethereum has already won, then life is good, right? Then I mean, then you don't care and you build something on Ethereum, whether it makes sense or not. But now, if there is competition and Solana is getting traction and Celestia is getting traction and other things are getting traction, then engineers start thinking, bro, what's the right place to build this system? What I'm trying to build, right? And then they have more choice. So I'm a big believer in choice. I think EigenLayer creates choice, right? So where people can say, look, Ethereum is hard to change. It's very expensive to run and deploy. So I'm going to build a whole new architecture, which is like I'll build AVSs, which are very quick to build and deploy and test compared to anything I deploy on Ethereum, right? And I'm still using Ethereum. So Ethereum guys are happy because, they still do restaking and their tokens are still being used and they collect some rent and airdrops and all that. And that includes me, by the way, just to be clear. So, so everyone is happy. And that's one competing architecture. In the meantime, you have Solana, which now starts to deal, solve one problem, but deal with their own problems of monolithic architectures. Celestia and Avail and these guys, right? So they start dealing with problems of modularity, which is this, sheer interconnect. Modular systems have their own problems, right? Because monolithic systems like iPhones, everything works together. It's beautiful. You can't do shit with it, right? You can't open it. You can't change the software on it. You can't do anything. You can just install apps. Android, oh, I'll boot, like break it, I'll change it, I'll probably change the Linux version on it, right? So that's now you end up with a lot of security brittleness problems and all that, right? So, but at the end of the day, we are here to play. Engineers become engineers, at least good engineers become engineers because they like to play, right? Except in Asia, where we become engineers because mom and dad asked us. Okay. So, or in India, where you have no choice. So, so anyway, so I think just so the beauty of modularity, and to be to give all the credit to Mustafa for it, it's just choice. Now we can design systems according to the trade-offs we are solving for, which is how we build modern systems in the real world out when we don't have to worry about bags, right? So I think modularity is phenomenal, but hopefully people think before they
Put
build
their
whatever.
thinking cap on and understand incentives and not narratives, and understand why.
Yeah.
So, Ajit, thank you
Bull
for
market things
coming
will be
on,
bull
sir.
market things, so of course.
That's right.
It's been a pleasure.
The biggest expansion,
Yeah.
I think, might even come in the bear for more critical thinking. So
Yeah,
we appreciate
we
you, man.
need that cleanup, right? We get the bubble, we get the cleanup, then we get the bubble, it's been happening in AI. Why shouldn't it happen to us? It'll be fun. Thank you so
Cheers,
much.
sir.
Yes.
Thank you,
Bye.
sir.